All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me, and do so if you actually can. So, to no surprise, the OPEC production cuts were extended again, even though, as said many times before, Kuwait and Algeria are the only two that are really obeying Saudi Arabia's orders at this point. And Saudi Arabia themselves, apart from the general OPEC orders, has said that they are considering extending their production cuts indefinitely, or AKA officially making their permanent production cut permanent, which it already was, as the OPEC production cuts are kind of intended to be overall, as they're a sort of official excuse Saudi Arabia can hide behind as to why they are perpetually now only holding at 9 million barrels per day instead of the 10 million barrel per day plateau that they still insist they could hold basically for all of eternity. Anyways, the OPEC production numbers as of the latest standings, with Saudi Arabia, the largest producer, obviously, now for the last couple of years holding a 9 million barrel per day plateau instead of their former 10 million barrel per day plateau, which they would have reached the end of their ability to maintain around 2032 or so. They've lowered themselves just a bit further now. They were a bit under 9 at 8.97. Now they've lowered down a bit, this time to 8.93 million barrels per day. Algeria had peaked at 1.4 million barrels per day, declined down to around 1 million, and recovered in terms of capacity with some enhanced recovery stuff and a few small new fields to about 1.1. However, under production cut orders, they are holding down around 900, this time at 908,000 barrels per day. Their neighbor Libya has restored some more of their production capacity that they had before the civil war started, hitting 1.42 million barrels per day now. A bit down to the south, Nigeria has even recovered a bit of its capacity. They were holding a plateau of around 2 million barrels per day, which they could have kept holding for another decade or two. However, over the last long while, a mixture of pipeline vandalism and theft and diversions, along with terror attacks, and lack of oil and gas infrastructure reinvestments because of government corruption internally, has seen their capacity degrade down to previously only about 1.3 or 1.4. However, now, however, after some extensive work, they've managed to restore their capacity back up to close to 1.5, this time coming in at 1.49 million barrels per day. Back over in the Persian Gulf, the UAE has consistently been holding above where Saudi Arabia would like them to. They're supposed to be down at like 2.8, or it might have been 2.7. However, they've consistently been refusing to do that and have been still holding up closer to 3, which was the plateau that they were holding previously. And they actually intend to go up to a 4 million barrel per day plateau. This time they are at 2.96 million barrels per day. Kuwait also held normally a 3 million barrel per day plateau. However, they are decently down from that, as, like I said, they're one of the only two countries other than Saudi Arabia that is actually following along with this anymore. And they were holding at 2.6. However, a couple months ago, potentially, I would suspect to possibly compensate for other members not following along, they were ordered to go down further from 2.6 to 2.4, and they obeyed and have since been holding at 2.4 million barrels per day. Iraq is supposed to be down at 3.8, and they have constantly, flagrantly been not doing that, fluctuating anywhere between 4 and 4.4, although they would otherwise be up closer to 5, though. Now, at the moment, they have abruptly dropped down to 4.04. Iran once held a 6 million barrel per day plateau before the revolution, was never able to fully restore it, only was able to get back up to about 4. And in the later 2010s, under heavy sanctions, they had to drop their production down to about 2 million barrels per day because they were only supplying their domestic consumption levels since they weren't able to sell to anybody. However, now that they are open again, they have been trying to restore back up to their 4 million barrel per day plateau. However, they can't quite make it because a lot of their fields are so aged and degraded in terms of their pressure gradient that they require so much gas reinjection to maintain their output levels that Iran is having a supply issue with that and even having to divert away from some of their own other areas of domestic supply, like winter heating, which caused some issues last winter. At the moment, they're hanging out in the low threes, coming in this time at 3.32. Venezuela, once holding a 3 million barrel per day plateau, and then crashing down when the country collapsed in the later 2010s, down to only about 400,000. With the help of Chevron off and on, they've managed to get almost back up to 1 million barrels per day. They've slipped back down now for the moment, though, down to 960. And two smaller members, too small to really participate in the production cuts, even if they wanted to. Gabon and the smaller of the two Congos, the more stable one, both of them peaked up in the 300,000s, and Gabon had declines down to around 180, but a new moderately sized offshore field a few months back brought them back up to around 230 or 220, from which they've declined back down to about 210, this time coming in at 213,000 barrels per day. And the small Congo is continuing to hold in the mid 200s, this time coming in at 268,000 barrels per day. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. There's a link in the description to a Google Drive with all kinds of different folders filled with graphs, charts, data compilations, all kinds of things. That's free to access. Any of that is free to use in your own stuff as well. There's a link below that to my photography Instagram, one to my cat's YouTube channel in the top pinned comment. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.